She thought I'd cry, beg to stay. Instead, I asked one question. Are you sure? Because among those 37 names on the strategic client list, everyone knew who really held those relationships. When my farewell email went out, the replies started flooding in. The first one had just 2 words, "Where's Rachel?" And that's when the real story began. My name is Rachel Whitmore, and at 36, I'd built something most people in finance only dream about, a client portfolio that practically ran itself because the relationships were that solid. 11 years at Brenner Solutions had taught me that in private financial consulting, trust isn't just currency, it's the entire economy. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Coffee at 6:30, emails by 7, reviewing the Morrison Industries quarterly strategy by 7:30. My team knew the rhythm, we'd perfected it over the years. 37 high-tier clients, 70% of the company's recurring revenue, and every single relationship maintained through late-night calls, weekend emergencies, and the kind of personal attention that turns business associates into something closer to partners. The email from Lindsay Kerr landed at 8:45 sharp. Please come to conference room A. We need to discuss your department's direction. Lindsay, 6 months ago, she was organizing birthday parties in HR. Then she married David Brenner, the co-founder's son, and suddenly she was executive vice president of client relations, my boss. I found her sitting at the head of the conference table, wearing a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Beside her sat someone I vaguely recognized from the office gym, Taylor something, fresh-faced, maybe 25, with the kind of aggressive enthusiasm that screams, "I just discovered LinkedIn influencers." "Rachel, thanks for coming," Lindsay said, not looking up from her iPad. "I'll keep this brief. We're restructuring the client management team to better align with our vision for dynamic market engagement." Dynamic market engagement. I'd written the company's client retention strategy 5 years ago, and I'd never used that phrase once. "We feel," she continued, finally making eye contact, "that your approach lacks the fresh energy our brand needs moving forward. Taylor here has shown incredible initiative in her 6 months as a sales assistant. She'll be taking over your accounts, effective immediately." I let the silence stretch just long enough to watch Taylor shift uncomfortably in her chair. Then I leaned back and asked the only question that mattered, all 37 accounts. "Yes," Lindsay's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Taylor's very eager to bring new perspectives to our established relationships." New perspectives. This girl who couldn't tell a derivative from a dividend was going to manage the Morrison Industries restructuring, the Blackwood Group's merger negotiations, the Valdez family trust that I'd spent 3 years carefully navigating through a generational transition. "I see," I said, keeping my voice steady. "And my team. They'll report to Taylor now. We're sure they'll help her transition smoothly." Translation, my team would do the actual work while Taylor took the credit. I'd seen this movie before. Lindsay slid a folder across the table. "We've prepared a generous severance package. 2 weeks, standard terms. We'd appreciate your cooperation in ensuring a smooth handover." I didn't touch the folder. Instead, I studied Lindsay's face, then Taylor's. Neither could hold my gaze for more than a few seconds. "When would you like me to clear my office?" Lindsay's relief was palpable. She'd expected tears, anger, maybe even begging. "End of day would be fine. Taylor can shadow you this afternoon to get up to speed." I stood, smoothing my skirt. "That won't be necessary. Everything Taylor needs is in the system." What I didn't say, everything Taylor needs that I'm legally obligated to leave behind. The real intelligence, the personal preferences, the unwritten rules, the delicate balance of each relationship that lived in my head and my personal files. "Rachel," Lindsay called as I reached the door. "We'll need your company phone and laptop by 5 p.m. "Of course." I turned back with my first genuine smile of the meeting. "I'll make sure you get everything that belongs to the company." The walk back to my office took 3 minutes. By the time I sat down at my desk, I'd already run through the client list in my head. 37 names, 37 relationships I'd built from nothing, 37 decision-makers who had my personal cell number, who sent holiday cards to my home address, who trusted me with their fears about market volatility and their children's college funds. Lindsay thought she was removing an employee. She had no idea she was attempting to sever connections that went far deeper than any org chart could capture. I opened my laptop and began typing. Not the transition notes Lindsay expected, but something far more important: my goodbye. I didn't go back to my office right away. Instead, I took a detour to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and allowed myself exactly 60 seconds to feel the rage. Then I washed my hands, fixed my lipstick, and got to work. The first thing people misunderstand about client relationships in financial services is ownership. Brenor Solutions owned the contracts, yes, but the relationships, those are built on something no employment agreement can capture. Back at my desk, I pulled up my personal laptop, the one I'd always used for my own analysis. The one where I'd built custom financial models that Brenner's outdated systems couldn't handle. Over the years, I developed my own portfolio tracking system, more sophisticated than anything the company provided. Every client had learned to expect my personalized reports, the ones with insights the company's standard templates couldn't deliver. I opened my contact database, not the company CRM, but my personal network built over 11 years. Email addresses, personal cell numbers, birthdays, spouses' names, kids' colleges, favorite restaurants, golf handicaps, the real currency of relationship management. My phone buzzed. A text from James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Industries. Heard you're training someone new today. Everything okay? Word traveled fast in Minneapolis financial circles. I typed back, change is in the air. I'll send you a personal update soon. One by one, I reviewed my client files, not the official Brenor documents, those would stay, gathering digital dust in folders Taylor would never understand. I focused on the real intelligence, the Morrison acquisition strategy I'd developed on my own time, the Blackwood family dynamics chart I'd created to navigate their board meetings, the Valdez trust optimization plan I'd been refining for months. Everything I'd created independently, outside of company hours, using my own resources, my intellectual property, developed to provide value that went beyond Brenner's basic services. This was why clients called my cell at 10 p.m., why they invited me to strategy sessions Brenner didn't even know about. I began composing my email, not a bitter farewell or a bridge-burning manifesto, something far more strategic. Dear client name, I wanted to personally inform you that as of today, I will be transitioning out of my role at Brenor Solutions. It has been my absolute privilege to work with you over the past X years, and I'm deeply grateful for the trust you've placed in me. Your account will be transitioned to Taylor Chen, who I'm sure will work diligently to maintain Brenor's service standards. On a personal note, I remain committed to your financial success and would be happy to continue our strategic discussions in my personal capacity. You have my personal contact information, and I'm always available for informal consultations about the market insights we've developed together. The proprietary analysis models I've shared with you over the years remain accessible through the secure links I've previously provided. These tools, developed independently, will continue to be updated as I move forward in my career. Warmest regards, Rachel Whitmore. I customized each message, adding personal touches, asking about David Blackwood's son's acceptance to Stanford, mentioning Maria Valdez's upcoming gallery opening, referencing the fishing trip where Tom Morrison and I had outlined his company's 5-year expansion plan. Then I turned to my team. Sarah, Marcus, and Amit had been with me for years. They deserved to hear this from me, not through office gossip. I called them into the small conference room. I wanted you to hear this directly from me, I began, watching their faces shift from curiosity to concern. I've been asked to transition out of my role. Taylor Chen will be taking over the department. Taylor, Sarah's voice cracked. The girl who asked me last week what Abitida stood for. The very same. I kept my tone neutral. I want you all to know that you're exceptional at what you do. My advice, document everything, every client preference, every process you've developed, every shortcut you've created. Make sure you can prove your value. Marcus leaned forward. Rachel, this is insane. You are the client relationship department. Brenor Solutions owns the department, I corrected gently. But relationships, those are more complicated. I spent the next 2 hours creating what Lindsay would consider proper transition documents. Clean, corporate, utterly useless without the context only I could provide. Taylor would get exactly what the company was entitled to and not one detail more. By 3 p.m., I'd sent all 37 personal emails. My phone was already buzzing with responses, but I ignored them. There would be time for that later. I packed my personal items slowly, deliberately. The photos from client appreciation dinners, the handwritten thank you notes, the crystal paperweight the Valdez family had given me after I'd helped them navigate a particularly difficult transition, evidence of relationships that transcended corporate boundaries. At 4:55, I knocked on Lindsay's door. She looked up, surprised. "I've sent transition notes to Taylor and CD'd you," I said, placing my company phone and laptop on her desk. "Everything she needs to manage the accounts is documented." "Excellent." Lindsay's smile was triumphant. "I'm sure this is for the best. Rachel, sometimes we need fresh energy to move forward." "Absolutely," I agreed. "Change can be very illuminating." As I walked out of Brenor Solutions for the last time, my personal phone vibrated constantly. 37 clients, 37 relationships, 37 questions about what came next. Lindsay thought she'd won. She'd removed an expensive senior employee, installed her malleable friend, and probably expected grateful clients who'd barely noticed the change. She was about to learn that in professional services, the product isn't what's in the contracts or the systems or the corporate brochures. The product is trust, and trust, I'd learned over 11 years, follows people, not companies. The unraveling began at precisely 8:17 the next morning. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, laptop open, reviewing the 43 responses that had flooded my personal inbox overnight. My phone rang Sarah, my former senior analyst. "Rachel, you need to know what's happening here." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "It's absolute chaos." "Take a breath. Tell me." "Taylor sent out her introduction email an hour ago. You know, the 'excited to be your new strategic advisor' template. Within minutes, the responses started coming in. Mr. Morrison wrote back with just one line, 'Where is Rachel Whitmore?' Then David Blackwood replied all. Rachel asking why he wasn't consulted about a change in account management for a $20 million portfolio. I took a sip of my coffee. And now Taylor's locked herself in the small conference room. Lindsay's been on the phone with damage control for the past 30 minutes. And Marcus just forwarded me 12 more emails from clients. They all say variations of the same thing they want to speak with you." Through the coffee shop window, I watched Minneapolis wake up to another gray March morning. What's Lindsay saying? She sent out a follow-up email 20 minutes ago. Very corporate speak, structural optimization, elevated service model, seamless transition. But then Maria Valdez responded asking for clarification about the trust restructuring meeting next week, the one you've been preparing for 3 months. Taylor had no idea what she was talking about. I pulled up my secure document server, where I'd hosted the Valdez trust analysis. Still there, still password protected, still completely inaccessible to Brenor Solutions. "There's more," Sarah continued. "Tom Morrison called the main line asking for your personal number. When reception told him you no longer worked there, he asked to speak to David Brenor directly. Senior David, not the son." My phone buzzed with another call. Elliot Marston's name flashed on the screen, the strategic director for our largest client, responsible for a portfolio worth more than all of Taylor's previous sales combined. "Sarah, I need to take this. Document everything, okay?" "Rachel, wait, are you coming back? There are rumors that—" I ended the call and answered Elliot's. "Rachel, thank God." His British accent was sharper than usual, the way it got when he was agitated. "I just had the most bewildering conversation with someone named Taylor who seems to think she's now managing our account. She couldn't answer a single question about our Q2 rebalancing strategy, the one you and I spent 6 hours designing last month." "Hello, Elliot. I'm no longer with Brenor Solutions as of yesterday. Yes, I gathered that from your email. What I'm trying to understand is why Brenor thinks they can replace 11 years of institutional knowledge with someone who just asked me to explain what a hedge fund is. I closed my laptop. That's a question for Brenner's leadership. Rachel, his tone shifted, became more personal. You know our contract is up for renewal in 60 days. You also know that contract has your name specifically mentioned in 4 different addendums as our primary strategic advisor. I did know. I'd negotiated those addendums myself. Standard practice for high-touch client relationships. Lindsay had probably never read them. I'm aware, yes. Then you're also aware that I have significant discretion in how we proceed with that renewal. He paused. Where are you planning to land? I'm exploring options. Explore faster. I'll need to know within 72 hours where to send our business. After Elliot hung up, I sat back and watched my phone light up with notifications, text messages, LinkedIn requests, emails to my personal account. The dam was breaking. A text from James Morrison popped up. Emergency board meeting called for this afternoon. Topic: vendor risk management and single points of failure. Care to guess which vendor we're discussing? Then another. From Maria Valdez. Mi querida, I don't care where you go, but my family's money follows you. This Taylor person just asked if she could touch base about our investment goals. We established those goals at Isabel's quinceañera. You were there. She was not. By 9:30, I'd received 14 variations of "Where did you go?", 9 requests for my new contact information, and 6 explicit statements that clients would be reconsidering their Brenor relationships. My favorite came from David Blackwood, the man who'd taught me everything about relationship capital over long lunches and longer golf games. 40 years I've been in this business, and I've never seen someone misplay a hand this badly. Your boss just bet the house on a pair of 2s. I'll be fascinated to watch her try to bluff her way out of this. I pulled out my personal notebook, leather-bound, a gift from a client, and began making a list, not of grievances or revenge plans, but of opportunities. Every crisis creates a vacuum, and vacuums in financial services get filled by whoever moves fastest with the most credibility. My phone rang again, unknown Minneapolis number. Rachel Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore, this is Patricia Brenner, the co-founder's wife, the one who'd built the company alongside her husband before their son's marriage had complicated the power structure. I believe we should have coffee this afternoon, if you're available. I'm listening. Not on the phone. The St. Paul Hotel, 3 o'clock, the executive lounge. The line went dead. I looked at my reflection in the coffee shop window. Yesterday, I'd been fired by a woman who thought relationships could be transferred like office supplies. Today, the real power players were starting to move. Taylor might have my old office, but she was about to learn that in professional services, the office was just where you sat. The relationships. Those walked out the door with me. By Thursday morning, Lindsay Kerr was in full crisis mode. Marcus had forwarded me the email chain, each message more desperate than the last. First, Lindsay's measured request for an all-hands meeting to discuss client communication protocols. Then, 2 hours later, a terse demand that I cease and desist from contacting Brenner clients. Finally, at 11:43 p.m., Wednesday night, a formal letter from Brenner's legal department. I read it while finishing my morning run along the Mississippi River. Standard intimidation tactics, vague threats about proprietary information, and client ownership. The kind of letter written by lawyers who bill by the hour and hope you'll fold without reading the fine print. My lawyer, Catherine Zhao, called as I was stretching. Just reviewed the cease and desist. It's tissue paper. Rachel, they're trying to claim you violated a non-compete you never signed and asserting ownership over relationships they can't prove. Want me to respond? Not yet. Let them sweat a little longer. I'd met Patricia Brenner at the St. Paul Hotel as requested. She'd been blunt, the board was furious. Her stepson David Jr. was trying to defend his wife's decision, and senior leadership was watching 40% of their revenue base destabilize in real time. I built this company on relationships, Patricia had said, stirring her tea with surgical precision. Now my idiot stepson and his gym bunny wife think they can run it like a software startup. Move fast and break things. She'd laughed bitterly. They're about to learn what happens when the things you break are trust networks that took decades to build. Now, 36 hours later, the full scope of Lindsay's miscalculation was becoming clear. Sarah called during my cool-down walk. "Rachel, you're not going to believe this. Lindsay just called an emergency meeting. She wants everyone to surrender their personal phones so legal can audit our contact lists." "She can't do that." "That's what Marcus told her. She threatened to fire him." He laughed and said, "Get in line." Then Amit asked if she planned to confiscate clients' phones too, since that's where your number is saved. Through my apartment window, I could see the Brenner Solutions building 6 blocks away, somewhere on the 15th floor. Lindsay was learning that corporate power had limits. "There's more," Sarah continued. "Taylor tried to lead the Morrison Industries strategy call this morning. Mr. Morrison asked her about the Shanghai expansion timeline, the one you've been modeling for 6 months. She had no idea what he was talking about. He ended the call after 12 minutes. My phone buzzed with another incoming call. David Brenor Jr. According to the caller ID, I let it go to voicemail. "Sarah, I need to go. Keep documenting everything, but don't do anything that could be construed as sabotage. You don't need to, the situation is sabotaging itself." After Sarah hung up, I listened to David Jr.'s voicemail. His usual salesman's confidence was gone, replaced by barely controlled panic. "Rachel, it's David. Listen, I think there's been a misunderstanding about your transition. Lindsay may have been overzealous in her restructuring plans. I'd like to discuss a consulting arrangement. Call me back, please." I deleted the message and opened my laptop. 47 new emails, including one from Brenner's largest institutional client with the subject line, "Concerns regarding account management changes." The phone rang again. This time, it was Richard Brenner himself, Patricia's husband, the founder who'd stepped back from daily operations but still held the controlling stake. "Ms. Whitmore," his voice was gravelly, tired. "I assume you know why I'm calling." "I can guess." "In 40 years of running this company, I've made maybe a dozen truly catastrophic mistakes. Letting my son convince me to give his wife operational control might top the list." He coughed. "I've just come from an emergency board meeting. 9 of our top 15 clients have formally expressed concern about your departure. 4 have requested contract reviews." I stayed silent. In negotiations, sometimes the most powerful move is letting the other party talk themselves into a corner. "I need to know something," he continued. "Are you actively soliciting our clients?" "No, Mr. Brenor. I sent personal notifications of my departure to people I've worked with for over a decade. They're drawing their own conclusions." "And if you were to receive a competitive offer, would you encourage them to follow you?" Now we were getting to it. "That would depend entirely on the offer, wouldn't it?" He sighed. "Lindsay wants to sue you. David Jr. is backing her play because he's an idiot who thinks with his well. The board wants to offer you a senior partnership to come back. Patricia wants to fire Lindsay and probably divorce my son." "And what do you want?" "I want to retire without watching my life's work implode because my daughter-in-law thought she could replace relationships with enthusiasm and a CrossFit membership." Despite everything, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Mr. Brenor, I appreciate the call, but I'm not interested in returning to a company where I can be dismissed on a whim. Your son and his wife made their position clear. Now they get to live with the consequences. What if Lindsay were no longer in a position of authority? Then you'd still have the problem of leadership that allowed this to happen in the first place." Another long silence. Finally, "You've been fielding other offers." It wasn't a question. I've been exploring options that align with my values and expertise. I hope you find what you're looking for. Rachel, you deserved better from us. After he hung up, I sat back and looked at my laptop screen. 3 emails had come in during our call. One from Harper Lane Ventures, one from a boutique firm I'd always admired, and one from Elliot Marston with the subject line, "Urgent Partnership Opportunity." Lindsay had thought she was playing checkers' simple moves. Clear winners and losers. Take Rachel's pieces off the board. Promote your friend. Claim victory. But business relationships weren't checkers. They were more like gardening. You could steal someone's garden, but without knowing how to tend each unique plant, all you'd inherit would be dying flowers and empty soil. My phone lit up with a text from Maria Valdez. Lunch tomorrow, I want you to meet someone, a friend who's starting a new venture. Bring your appetite for risk. I smiled and typed back, I'll bring my appetite, the risk I've already developed a taste for. The call from Harper Lane Ventures came at 7:22 a.m. on Friday, exactly 72 hours after I'd walked out of Brenner Solutions. Rachel, it's Samantha Harper. Her voice carried the kind of confidence that came from building a venture capital firm from scratch. I'll cut to the chase. We've had 6 conversations about you in the last 48 hours, all initiated by your former clients. I set down my coffee. Is that so? Elliot Marston called me personally, said if we were smart, we'd build an entire division around you. David Blackwood sent me your performance metrics, apparently. You generated more value in advisory fees than any 3 other managers combined. Through my apartment window, dawn was breaking over Minneapolis. Somewhere across the city, Taylor was probably preparing for another day of client calls she couldn't handle. We're not interested in poaching, Samantha continued. We're interested in building. Harper Lane is launching a new division, strategic advisory for established technology companies preparing for exit events. We need someone who understands relationships at the highest level. I'm listening. Full partner track. Base salary 40% above your Brenner package. Performance bonuses tied to client retention and growth. Most importantly, complete autonomy in building your team and choosing your clients. My laptop pinged with an email from Marcus. Emergency at Brenner. 9 clients officially terminated contracts this morning. Lindsay's been removed from all client-facing duties. Thought you should know. When would you need an answer? I asked Samantha. Monday. But Rachel, I should mention if you accept, you'd be free to bring your own client base. We're not bound by Brenner's client restrictions because we operate in a different market segment. Technology versus traditional finance. After she hung up, I opened the flood of messages that had accumulated overnight. The Valdez Family Trust technically focused on technology investments. Morrison Industries actively pursuing digital transformation. Blackwood Group heavily invested in fintech startups. My phone rang. Sarah, breathless with news. Rachel, you're not going to believe what just happened. The entire Phoenix branch just sent a vote of no confidence in Lindsay's leadership. Apparently, word got out about what happened to you, and they're terrified they're next. Slow down. What exactly happened? Phoenix's biggest client, Harriet Chen. She specifically asked why you weren't on their quarterly review call. When they told her you'd been replaced, she said, and I quote, "Then I guess we need to review more than just this quarter." She's putting their entire 8-figure portfolio up for bid. I pulled up my notes from Harriet Chen's last visit to Minneapolis. We'd spent 3 hours discussing her grandson's startup, another 2 planning her foundation's technology grants. She'd sent me a handwritten note after her husband's funeral last year, thanking me for handling the trust transition with such discretion. Another call came through, this time, Patricia Brenner. The board just held an emergency session, she said without preamble. Lindsay's been placed on administrative leave. My stepson is fighting it, but he's outnumbered. The CFO presented the numbers we're looking at: a 43% revenue loss if current trajectories hold. I'm sorry to hear that. Patricia laughed, short and sharp. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. You built something over 11 years, and they tried to hand it to someone who couldn't spell fiduciary without autocorrect. My doorbell rang, a courier with a formal packet from Harper Lane Ventures. The official offer, hand-delivered. Patricia, I appreciate the update, but I'm calling to give you information, not to recruit you back. That ship has sailed, and we both know it. But Rachel, when you land wherever you're going, remember that some of us knew your value all along. I spent the rest of Friday in meetings. Lunch with Maria Valdez and her friend, who turned out to be launching a revolutionary fintech platform. Coffee with 3 former team members who'd heard about Harper Lane and wanted to follow me. Dinner with Elliot Marston, who made it clear that his company's contract would follow me wherever I went. By Friday evening, the math was simple. 23 of my 37 core clients had reached out directly. 9 had already terminated their Brenner contracts. 6 more were waiting to see where I landed. I called Catherine, my lawyer. Harper Lane made an offer. I want to accept, but I need to ensure we're bulletproof on the non-compete issue. Already handled. Brenner's cease and desist was withdrawn an hour ago. My contact at their firm says they're in full damage control mode. They can't afford a legal battle that would make their client exodus public. Saturday morning, I met Samantha Harper for breakfast at the St. Paul Grill. She'd brought the partnership agreements and a simple question. How many clients do you think you can bring? I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Conservative estimate, 15 to 20 in the first 90 days, optimistic 25. She whistled low. And your team? 3 senior analysts ready to make the jump, 2 more considering it, all top performers that Brenner can't afford to lose but will because they've destroyed trust. Samantha raised her coffee cup. To creative destruction. To knowing your worth, I corrected. We clinked cups as my phone lit up with another message. Taylor, of all people. Hi, Rachel. I'm really sorry about everything. I didn't know what Lindsay was planning. Is there any way we could talk? I'm completely overwhelmed and the clients keep asking for you. I showed the message to Samantha, who shook her head. The gym buddy discovers that relationships don't transfer with the office keys. Shocking. I typed back, I wish you the best of luck in your new role. Then I blocked the number. Some bridges weren't worth maintaining, but the ones I'd built over 11 years of late nights, weekend calls, and genuine care, those were about to form the foundation of something entirely new. Monday morning, I'd walk into Harper Lane Ventures as their newest partner. By Monday afternoon, the first wave of client transitions would begin. Lindsay had fired me to promote her friend. She'd thought she was consolidating power. Instead, she'd set me free. The walls at Brenner Solutions were crumbling faster than anyone had anticipated. Marcus sent me a play-by-play that read like a corporate thriller. Monday morning, 8:15 a.m., Lindsay emerged from her mandatory leave to find her office access revoked. 8:45, an all-staff email from Richard Brenner himself, announcing leadership restructuring to better serve our valued clients. 9:30. Taylor submitted her resignation via email. Just 2 words in the body, I quit. She didn't even last a full week, Marcus wrote. Left her computer logged in, badge on the desk, and walked out. Security found her crying in the parking garage. I was settling into my new office at Harper Lane Ventures, hanging the crystal paperweight from the Valdez family, when Sarah called. Rachel, it's pure chaos here. They're trying to redistribute the accounts Taylor abandoned, but nobody wants to touch them. Everyone knows those clients are just waiting to jump ship. What about the transition data I left? Sarah laughed, but it sounded hollow. That's the best part. Lindsay made Taylor delete all your transition notes on day 1, said she wanted fresh perspectives without old baggage. So now they have literally nothing. No client preferences, no project histories, no relationship maps. My new assistant knocked Harper Lane had assigned me a full support team from day 1. Ms. Whitmore, your 10 o'clock is here. Mr. Morrison and his CFO. Sarah, I need to go. Remember what I said about documenting everything? Already done. And Rachel Amit and I sent our resumes to Harper Lane's HR this morning. The Morrison meeting was a formality. Tom Morrison had already decided to move his business. He just wanted to see my new setup first. Impressive, he said, looking around the modern office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Minneapolis skyline. Quite an upgrade from that cubicle farm at Brenner. It's not about the office, Tom. No, he agreed. It's about the fact that you're here, you have full autonomy, and you're not going to be replaced by someone's drinking buddy. He slid a folder across my desk. Signed transfer documents, $22 million in assets under management, effective immediately. By noon, I'd processed 4 more transfers: the Blackwood Group, 2 of the Valdez family trusts, a technology startup I'd been advising informally for 3 years. Samantha Harper stopped by, practically glowing. "Legal just called. Brenner's attorney wants to discuss a mutual understanding about client transitions." Translation: they're terrified of a mass exodus making the business press. What's our position? We let them be terrified. Fear is a wonderful motivator for reasonable behavior. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Someone had posted about Brenner Solutions, and I'd been tagged. I opened the app to find a long post from David Blackwood. A lesson in relationship value. When Brenner Solutions decided to replace Rachel Whitmore, they didn't just lose an employee. They lost 11 years of institutional knowledge, trust, and the kind of relationships that can't be transferred via email. Proud to continue working with Rachel at her new firm, Harper Lane Ventures. True expertise always finds its level. Within an hour, the post had over 300 reactions and dozens of comments from industry leaders. The death blow wasn't the client losses, it was the public perception that Brenner had catastrophically mismanaged their most valuable assets. Catherine, my lawyer, called during lunch. "Interesting development. Brenner's legal team wants to offer you a substantial settlement to sign a more comprehensive non-disparagement agreement. They're particularly concerned about you writing about this experience." "How substantial?" "6 figures, plus accelerated vesting of your retirement accounts and a glowing letter of recommendation." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No. "Rachel, that's a lot of money to walk away from." "They're not paying for my silence. They're trying to buy control of the narrative. The damage to their reputation is worth far more than 6 figures, and they know it." That afternoon, I held my first team meeting at Harper Lane. Sarah and Amit had already received offers, and Marcus was in final interviews. We spent 2 hours mapping out our vision for the new division, not just recreating what we'd built at Brenner, but designing something better. "No more politics," I said, looking at each of them. "No more gym buddies getting promoted over experienced professionals. Just excellent work for clients who value what we do." My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then noticed the area code Boston. "Ms. Whitmore, this is Sandra Liu from Forbes. I'm working on a piece about relationship capital in financial services. I'd love to speak with you about your recent transition and the broader implications for the industry." I showed the message to Samantha, who grinned like a chess player seeing checkmate 5 moves ahead. "Take the interview," she said. "Be professional, factual, and let the story tell itself. Brenner wanted to control the narrative. Let's see how they handle the spotlight." By 5 p.m., my client transition list had grown to 19 confirmed moves, with another 8 in active discussions. The Harper Lane CFO stopped by to show me the projections at this rate. The new division would be profitable within 60 days, not the 6 months they'd originally modeled. As I packed up for the day, my phone rang one last time. Patricia Brenner. "Congratulations on Harper Lane," she said. "You've done in 5 days what I spent 40 years building, created a reputation that clients follow regardless of the logo on the door." "Thank you, Patricia." "Lindsay's been terminated. By the way, the board voted this afternoon. David Jr. is threatening to sue his own father over it, which tells you everything about why this happened in the first place. I'm sorry it came to that." "Are you?" she chuckled. "Well, you're more gracious than I would be. Take care, Rachel. And if you ever write a book about this, change my name. I'd rather be remembered for building Brenner up than watching my stepson tear it down." After she hung up, I stood at my window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Brenner Solutions was scrambling to salvage relationships they'd never truly valued. Taylor was probably updating her resume, adding senior client relationship manager to a tenure that lasted less than a week. Lindsay was learning that marrying into power wasn't the same as earning it. And me, I was exactly where I needed to be, surrounded by people who understood that in professional services, the most valuable assets weren't the ones on the balance sheet. They were the ones who could walk out the door anytime they chose and take half your business with them when they left. The LinkedIn post started as a ripple and became a tsunami. David Blackwood's initial post had been strategic enough, but what followed transformed a corporate mishap into an industry cautionary tale. By Tuesday evening, his post had over 12,000 views and hundreds of comments from CEOs, founders, and industry veterans. Then came the follow-up that changed everything. Maria Valdez, who rarely used social media, posted a photo from her gallery opening 2 years prior. In it, I stood between her and her late husband, champagne glasses raised. Her caption was devastating in its simplicity. When my husband passed, Rachel Whitmore spent her Thanksgiving helping me navigate the trust transition. She didn't bill for those hours. She said family came first. Last week, Betrayal Solutions decided she was replaceable. This week, my family's entire portfolio followed her to Harper Lane Ventures. Relationships aren't built in gyms or boardrooms. They're built in hospital waiting rooms and funeral parlors, and the moments when business stops being transactional. The post went viral within the Minneapolis financial community, then spread outward. By Wednesday morning, it had been shared over 400 times. I was reviewing portfolio allocations when Sandra Liu from Forbes called for our scheduled interview. "Rachel, I've been covering financial services for 15 years, she began. I've never seen anything quite like this. A single employment decision triggering what amounts to a client revolt. Can you help me understand what happened?" I chose my words carefully. I think this situation illustrates a fundamental misunderstanding about professional services. Betrayal Solutions is an excellent company with strong capabilities, but somewhere along the line, there was a disconnect between leadership's perception of value and clients' actual needs. Multiple sources have confirmed that you were replaced by someone with less than 6 months of experience. Can you speak to that? I can't comment on Brenner's internal decisions. What I can say is that client relationships in financial services are built on trust, expertise, and consistency. When any of those elements are disrupted without careful planning, clients notice. The numbers we're seeing suggest that Brenner has lost nearly 40% of their managed assets in under a week. Is that consistent with what you're observing? I glanced at my screen, where another transfer confirmation had just arrived. I'm focused on serving my clients at Harper Lane Ventures. The market will ultimately decide how to value different approaches to relationship management. After the interview, Samantha walked into my office with her tablet. "You need to see this." She pulled up a financial news blog that had aggregated the social media posts, the client transfers, and industry commentary into a single article titled, "The $11 million Gym Membership, How Cronyism Cost Betrayal Solutions Its Client Base." $11 million, I asked. Conservative estimate of their weekly revenue loss, based on confirmed client departures. The real number is probably higher. My phone buzzed. Tom Morrison had forwarded me an email chain. The original message was from Lindsay to several former Betrayal clients, offering personal attention from senior leadership and revised fee structures to demonstrate our commitment. Tom's response, which he'd CC'd to Richard Brenner, was brutal. "Lindsay, I find it ironic that you're now offering personal attention when you fired the person who provided it for 11 years. No thank you." But the most damaging blow came from an unexpected source. Thursday morning, a Betrayal insider leaked an internal memo to a financial blog. In it, Lindsay had written, 2 days before firing me, "RW's client list represents an opportunity to promote fresh talent and reduce salary overhead. Her relationships are institutional, not personal, and will transfer seamlessly." The blog post's title, "Institutional, Not Personal, the 6 words that cost a fortune." By Thursday afternoon, the story had been picked up by the Wall Street Journal's wealth management section. They'd even found Taylor for a comment. Her quote would haunt Brenner for years. "I was told the clients would stay because they needed Brenner's platform. Nobody mentioned they were there because of Rachel." Catherine called while I was in back-to-back client meetings. Brenner's legal team reached out again. "They're now offering a mid-7-figure settlement and a public statement acknowledging your contributions." Still no. "Rachel, that's serious money. It's not about money, it's about the 23 clients who trusted me enough to follow me to a new firm. I'm not going to sign something that limits my ability to serve them or tell the truth about what happened. The Forbes article went live Friday morning. Sandra Liu had done her homework, interviewing a dozen industry experts about relationship capital and the real value of experienced advisors. She'd even gotten a quote from a Harvard Business School professor. This case will be taught in business schools for decades. It's a perfect example of how misunderstanding intangible assets can destroy tangible value. Brenor Solutions didn't just lose an employee. They lost the relationships, trust, and institutional knowledge that employee represented. But it was the final quote in the article that captured everything. It came from Elliot Marston, whose measured British understatement made it even more damaging. In 30 years of working with financial advisors, I've learned that competence can be hired, platforms can be built, and processes can be documented. But the advisor who remembers your daughter's graduation date, who answers calls during their vacation when markets crash, who builds models on their own time because they're genuinely invested in your success, that's irreplaceable. Brenor Solutions forgot that. Their clients haven't. By Friday evening, my Harper Lane email signature included a growing list: strategic advisory partner, managing director of the technology services division, and leader of a team that now included 5 former Brenor top performers. 26 clients had officially transferred, combined assets under management $430 million. I was packing up when a hand-delivered letter arrived. Richard Brenner's personal stationery, his handwriting still steady despite his age. Rachel, in business, we sometimes learn our most valuable lessons through our greatest failures. You've taught us ours. I hope Harper Lane knows what they have in you. With respect and regret, Richard. I filed the letter away and looked out at the Minneapolis skyline, somewhere in that sea of glass and steel. Brenor Solutions was holding emergency meetings, calculating losses, and trying to understand how a single firing had triggered an avalanche. The answer was simple. Really, they'd thought they were removing a line item from a budget. Instead, they'd cut the threads that held their most valuable relationships together. And in professional services, those threads, once cut, rarely get rewoven. 6 months later, I stood before Harper Lane's annual partners meeting, presenting the final numbers for our new division. The PowerPoint slide behind me told a story that no one in the room had quite expected. First-year revenue, $62 million, client retention 100%, new business development 40% growth, quarter-over-quarter, team expansion from 5 to 23 professionals, all performing at the highest level. The Technology Services Division has exceeded every projection, I concluded, clicking to the final slide. But the real victory isn't in these numbers. It's in the model we've proven that investing in relationships, respecting experience, and valuing expertise creates sustainable, exponential growth. The applause was warm, genuine. Samantha Harper caught my eye and nodded the kind of acknowledgement that said more than words could. After the meeting, I checked my phone to find a message from Marcus, now my senior director. "You need to see this. Brenner's in the news again." The headline was stark: Brenor Solutions acquired by competitor after 40% revenue loss. The article detailed how Richard Brenner, facing insurmountable client defections and internal turmoil, had sold the firm he'd spent 4 decades building, the price roughly half of what the company had been valued at the day they let me go. Lindsay Kerr was mentioned only once. In a single line, former executive Lindsay Kerr could not be reached for comment. I was contemplating the article when Sarah knocked. "Rachel, the Valdez family is here for their quarterly review. Also, there's someone in the lobby asking to see you. Says she's from Brenor, well, what used to be Brenor." In the lobby stood Patricia Brenner, looking older but somehow more at peace. "I won't take much of your time," she said. "I just wanted to see what you've built, and to tell you something Richard never could bring himself to say, which is that the worst decision Brenor Solutions ever made became the best thing that could have happened for you, for your clients, and honestly, for the industry. You've proven what I always believed, that relationships are the only real currency in this business. She handed me a small package. My husband's original business plan from 1984, page 3, highlighted. I thought you might appreciate it. After she left, I opened the package. There, in Richard Brenner's younger handwriting, was a single highlighted paragraph. The foundation of financial services is not products, platforms, or processes. It is the irreplaceable value of trusted advisors who view their clients' success as inseparable from their own. Lose sight of this truth, and no amount of innovation or efficiency can save you. I photocopied the page and had it framed for my office. That evening, at our division's 6-month celebration, I looked around the room at my team-talented professionals who'd been overlooked, undervalued, or pushed aside for younger, cheaper alternatives. Together, we'd built something remarkable. Amit raised his glass for a toast. To Rachel, who showed us that sometimes getting fired is just the universe's way of promoting you to something better. No, I corrected, raising my own glass. To all of us, who proved that experience, relationships, and genuine care for clients will always triumph over shortcuts and cronyism. Later, as I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Taylor Mills, formerly Taylor from the gym, had updated her profile. She was now a fitness instructor at a boutique studio. Her brief stint as senior client relationship manager already scrubbed from her history. Her latest post was about finding your authentic path and learning from life's challenges. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But then I remembered something Tom Morrison had told me during our first meeting at Harper Lane. You know what the difference is between you and the people who tried to replace you? They thought your job was managing accounts. You knew it was managing lives. That night, I received one final email that brought everything full circle. It was from a potential client, referred by 3 different sources. Ms. Whitmore, I've heard remarkable things about your approach to wealth management. What impressed me most was a story Maria Valdez shared about how you spent Thanksgiving helping her family through a difficult transition. That's the kind of advisor I want in my corner. When can we meet? I smiled and began typing my response. Another relationship to build. Another opportunity to prove that in professional services, the most valuable assets weren't the ones you could put on a spreadsheet. They were the ones who chose, every single day, to put their clients first. The ones who understood that trust, once earned, was priceless and once broken, nearly impossible to repair. Lindsay Kerr had thought she was promoting her gym buddy and saving a salary. Instead, she'd handed me my freedom and $62 million worth of vindication. Not a bad return on investment for a Tuesday morning firing. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't planned or plotted. Sometimes, it's simply continuing to be excellent at what you do and letting the world notice the difference. And in my case, the world had definitely noticed. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed this tale of corporate karma and professional vindication, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever experienced something similar in your workplace? I'd love to hear your story.